Thank you for being here. We're so excited to finally, well, I guess it's me finally meeting you face to face because you've already met Nanya.
Yes. I'm so excited.
So I'm going to go ahead and just say, hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Nanya.
And I'm Veronica.
And this is Veronica. And this is Horror/Stories. And with us are Veronica and Lizzy. And I'm going to let Nanya introduce our guests.
Oh my God, I get to introduce you. This is like my first time. Okay. So today's guests, Veronica and Lizzy, are the co-hosts of the Spill the Spice podcast, where they stir together storytelling, the kind of healing that lives in the pages of the books, and speaking on everything they were told to keep hidden. Veronica is an herbal alchemist, ritualist, and recovering scaredy cat who grew up obsessed with horror. From Goosebumps and Tales from the Crypt to reading scary stories to tell in the dark, she has always been drawn to the eerie and otherworldly. These days, she blends that love of the mysterious with a deep devotion to feminine archetypes, shadow work, and sacred storytelling.
Hi.
Hi. We're so happy to have you. And then our other guest, Lizzy, by day crunches numbers and lives her best spreadsheet life. Yes, she does color code for fun. She didn't venture into dark romance until Veronica dragged her into the shadows, especially during her Halloween-fueled reading sprees. It was definitely outside her usual genre, but she didn't hate it. Horror movies, hard no. She screams at jump scares like it's her job. That said, she's a full believer in ghosts, loves a good ghost tour, and has more than a few haunted tales from the farmhouse she grew up in. Trust me, it left a mark. Thank you for being here.
We are so excited.
Yes, thank you for having us. It's exciting.
I'm just laughing to myself because I love that you are coming on a horror podcast and your intro is, I hate horror movies. Hard no.
Oh, if you want something even better than that, I am a co-host of a horror podcast and I don't like horror movies.
There you go. There you go. Well, it brings like new perspective. So that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When Nanya is on vacation next month, because no one has been pushing me to watch the really scary stuff like my brother was before. So when Nanya is on vacation, JC Murphy, who was one of our guests previously, she said she's into the really scary stuff. So she's going to come back and we're going to watch Impetigore. So,
ooh.
Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it. I have not seen it.
I've not heard of it, but I also
won't.
My family will get together and have movie nights and they'll be like, we're going to watch scary movies. Do you want to come? And I'm like, no. Like, can you pick a different one? There's never another night of like rom-coms, or I don't even really like rom-coms. I prefer like action movies, but like it's never anything else. It's just like, we're going to watch a scary movie. Pass.
I know, Nanya, you saw the commercial and you were like, no, you can watch that while I'm gone.
I saw the title and I was like, no, you can watch that while I'm gone.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So would you say that you scare easily? And what do you consider scary and why? I guess you can take turns answering.
Like everything?
I scare easily, yes. Like jump scares. I'm more of like a thriller movie person. Like we were just talking about this. Like Shutter Island, love Shutter Island. Like it's so good. The Sixth Sense, though, The Sixth Sense scared me for years.
That
but
that was
Ghosts
traumatic.
also. Like, so like, yeah. And then, yeah, once you know the ending of that, then I had to go back and watch it and I wasn't near as scared. But I believe in ghosts. So anything ghost related, like haunting related, like Amityville. let me, I can't even say that right. Amityville. What am I saying?
Amityville. That's funny because I put that as one of my recommendations for the horror movies.
You did?
Is Amityville Horror.
Yeah, like I can't do that kind of stuff because because to me it's real. Like hauntings are real. Like the ghost showed up at the end of my bed. It's real. Like I'm not like I won't fuck around with that. But it's interesting because I saw Law-Abiding Citizen in the movie theater with one of my friends. She used to be my best friend at the time. And I think she had maybe 2 of her 3 kids during that time. To her, that's really scary because to her, that's reality. Like somebody could break in and murder my family and do all that stuff. But to me, that's nothing for me. Like the ghost all the way. I could watch Law Abiding Citizen, great movie.
What was Law Abiding Citizen? I haven't heard of that or seen it.
So Gerard Butler and Jamie Foxx and somebody breaks in and murders his family. And he knows who did it. Gerard does. But he says, it's not, what's the line? It's not what you know, it's what you can prove in a court of law. So the guy gets away with it. So he goes and he gets revenge, and he ends up getting arrested, but he's still killing a lot of people. And then he just shoves his line right back in his face because they can't prove that he did anything, but he's getting revenge on the people who killed his family.
Oh, wow.
It's really good. Highly recommend.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So I'm just realizing, like, we read your interest, but I didn't really even talk about your podcast and like, wow, how we
have a
got connected. You have a podcast, and I just think, like, I'm such a huge fan, and I think you have such amazing guests, including Nenya and including many of our friends. But yeah, I just wanted to like take a moment to list all the reasons why I love what you do. But I think everyone should check your podcast out. I genuinely mean that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was trying to explain to my husband, like, what am I doing tonight? Why am I on this podcast? And I was like, you know, Sarah, she like connected like really, really early on. Like, I remember like you were one that was like always commenting on the episodes. And then somehow we just started talking in Messenger. And I was like, that seems so long ago, because when I think of you, I think of a friend. And I'm like, wow, at one point, like you were just a stranger on the internet.
A reply guy.
Yeah. That was like, oh, that episode was so good. I loved it. And now it's like, now we're here.
I remember when you were just I think we connected through Instagram, and the way you advertised your show sounded really interesting. And then when I listened to it, it actually, I feel like what you're doing is really unique, and it's something that fills a niche. And I think it's really hard to stand out, especially as like a book podcast, especially like as a romance podcast, as a talking about spicy books podcast. Like, there are a lot of people who are doing that, but I think what you are doing is really unique. And I think you, like, the way you approach the books you read and also your interviews it's really impactful, and you bring like a unique lens a healing lens to your conversations.
Sarah was actually the one who told me to sign up.
I love
with
that.
you as a guest.
I love that.
And I watched 2 of your episodes. I think the one you had before I signed up was Pet Motel.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing I really love about your podcast is you talk about romance novels the way a lot of people talk about literary fiction. And I think in an era where like romance novels are constantly having to fight for legitimacy, I think we need those dialogues. And I love the attention and care you put into the romance genre, dark romance especially.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it was like when we first started, you know, we didn't know really what we were doing, and we didn't really know the direction. And I remember us sitting down and we were trying to think like, how should we do this? And I was like, me personally, I could not just like talk about the books and like deep dive chapter by chapter. Like, that's just not me. Like, when I'm reading a book, it's like I'm seeing it like in general, like these overall themes and how I feel and everything. I'm not just like, oh, in chapter 3 when she said this. And so I was like, that just, if that's what you want to do, like, that's awesome. I just probably will not be very good at this. And I don't even know how it started. We were just like, once we realized, which we talked about on this episode, how bad recording was in the beginning, we did not know what to do. We were so uncomfortable talking, and we would start and stop every sentence. And we'd be like, okay, does that sound good? Did that sound okay? Okay, click record. Okay, did that sound okay? And it would take us so long to record stuff.
3 hours. 3 hours later, we're like, we have 3 minutes.
Yeah, we're like, we did 3
hours.
We did it. And my husband was like, well, can't you just like talk? And I was like, what? What do you mean? And I think it just like naturally just kind of evolved organically into what it is, just because we just wanted to talk about what we would normally talk about at book club or through text or anything, and not make it about like this specific book. And what we did, it's like, this is just how we feel and the healing that it's bringing. And yeah, I love it. It's been awesome.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
And I think you have something on each episode that would resonate with a lot of people. So I am definitely a fan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last thing I'll say about this, but I always laugh afterwards when I'm listening because I'm like, how is it that we can relate so much to so many things? Like, are we really just so filled with trauma that like every single issue, I'm like, oh yeah, I got a story for this one. You know, it's wild. I don't know.
I just think mental health is so important. Like I went through such a journey, and I just feel like I have friends that will not acknowledge it and go on and off meds. And I'm just like, you just need to like stick with it. Like, you need it. Right. And I just feel like there's so much shame behind it. But like, God, who is not fucked up these days, right? Like, come on. And I just feel like we need to acknowledge that even in the workforce, right? Like, we need to have mental health days. We need to be able to take care of ourselves. And I think so much of that, those themes come through books. And I think people kind of ignore that. They're all about, oh, well, it's really spicy and this or whatever. And it is. And I love to talk about the spice. But there's just so much more that, we want to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So I'm going to skip ahead because we had a question that was, what was your relationship to horror movies and horror genre? I feel like we've kind of touched on that. So related to what we've been talking about right now, you talked on your show about dealing with anxiety. Do you have any strategies for navigating fear?
So this is a tough one because I'm not like a practice what you preach type of person, unfortunately. I think one of the most important things is to just bring awareness to the feelings that you're having and acknowledging that without judgment of your own emotions and stuff. And just kind of reframing the perspective that you have about fear and the situation that you're in. And, obviously it depends on the situation and what you're being fearful of. If we're talking about, movies or anything like that, like just reframing it and asking yourself different questions and just changing the narrative. And something that I try to do with my struggles of anxiety and panic disorders is just figuring out like, what can I learn from this? What can I do to help me grow and evolve from this and not just look at it like my life sucks now. I can't drive on the highway anymore. And that really sucks. Like just kind of reframing my perspective of it and then doing, the grounding techniques and the rituals that really helps me at least get through the day and, make it to the next point of my journey with anxiety.
I'm kind of a talker. Like I have to talk things out multiple times, like over and over and over. And sometimes with the same person. And sometimes when you're my friend, that's really hard because you're like, I've already heard you bitch about the same thing. But like, for me, it's just talking out loud. And at one point, I'm going to say it some way that it's going to click in my head and then I'm going to let it go. I'm not a writer. Like I do not journal. I don't do anything like that. I will. And I actually did recently because there was absolutely nobody to talk to. And it was like such a big story that it was like, I can't type this all out in a text message. So like it was really late and I typed it all out and it made me feel better. But when it comes to like, I'm scared of spiders. And I will scream. So I really have to like tell myself how that spider is going to hurt me. Now it's a really big spider, that's not going to work. But I still get scared on the little bitty ones. But so I could usually talk myself into like killing those. But it's really kind of like rationalizing it, right? Like it's not going to hurt you. It's like this big. Like you can do it. And breathing. I'm a big, like I have to breathe. Like if I get really, really upset and really stressed, I do that. Whatever the square breathing, the in 1, 2, 3, 4, hold 1, 2, 3, 4, out 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what I use.
Yeah.
I really relate to both of your strategies. And I think I deal with a lot of intrusive thoughts. And when you feel shame about those and you're just like, why am I feeling like this? Then it just makes it worse. It just compiles. So I think accepting it, having grace for yourself, and also asking, like, what am I actually scared of in this moment is really helpful. Yeah.
I started going to therapy because of the book community, actually, because I've been pretty open about my struggles with mental health. I have depression and anxiety, which are super fun in combination.
Right.
Same.
And my therapist said something really great because I do catastrophic thinking and like cascade worrying, where like your worries will build on top of each other and you do like worst case scenarios.
Yeah.
And my mother recently had a cancer scare. And so I was flipping out in my like therapist virtual office. And she said, okay, look, you can't control the future. All you can do is control your own behavior. Like if your mother does get sick, she can probably get treated and maybe she won't get sick at all. You won't know. And like beating yourself up over this isn't going to help your mom. And so I was like, okay, I got to be well for my mom so I don't make her worse.
Yeah.
And that really reframed my thinking because I'm like, okay, if I only worry about the things that I can control, that's like a 90% reduction in worry.
Yeah.
That's so true. And I mean, I think therapy is so important. Like I've been in it for like over 6 years and it's been life-changing for me. Once I found the right therapist, because I do believe that you need to find the right one. And sometimes it's not the first one you go and find. But I have similar thoughts in the sense that like, I'm just waiting for the shoe to fall. And she's always like, you know, you're a good person and you deserve good things and good things will happen. And I'm like, yeah, but probably not, you know, because like you're just waiting for that. And so it's really hard to get out of that mindset. And so that's definitely something that I am working on currently with my therapist is to see the positivity in things. And it's really, really hard.
Yeah, the waiting thing really resonates with me because what I told my therapist is like, I told her that if I don't make myself suffer, I feel like the universe is going to punish me for like not worrying enough. And so the bad thing will happen if I don't worry. And it's like, it sounds so irrational saying it out loud, but like that's how my brain works.
Yeah.
That's why it's also helpful to talk to people because I feel like sometimes I get so in my head about something and then when I say it out loud to someone else, I'm like, oh, okay, just put it in perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even just validating if you say something, you're like, well, this sounds so crazy. And they're like, no, I understand. Like, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of the universe, we have another question for you. Veronica, I've heard you're a bit of a ghost hunter. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, man. So I don't know if I would call myself a ghost hunter. I just think that I probably did some very stupid things, putting myself in pretty dangerous situations, all for the hunt of the ghost. Yeah, I think like 18, 19, 20 years old, like me and my best friend were so obsessed with, we would find like local folklore and we would go all around our town, which surprisingly had like a lot of really interesting stories of things that happened. And it would just be me and her and a camera. And we would just go like late at night and try to find something, orbs, ghosts, it was before like, you really had cell phones that actually did anything. So it's not like we had like recordings or anything, but yeah, we would like go into abandoned homes and see if we can like, I don't know, conjure up things. Like it was it was so crazy. And like there was this one time, like we definitely had some experiences. Like there was this one, it was this beautiful mansion and it had a lot of stories of people seeing like things in the basement and like a butler and all these things. So we went there, like two teenage girls, like it's crazy. And we broke into the house. So I will not say the location. I will not say anything. We broke into this house and I remember us going in and like you would hear things, like you would hear like creaking or like as if like something was being like dragged. And I started getting this like visceral reaction. It was probably a panic attack. But I started feeling like almost like my blood sugar was low and everything was tingly. And because we are young and very not naive, my friend was like, well, let me go to the car and get like a candy or something. Like maybe your blood sugar is low. And so she left me there. And I'm in this mansion house by myself. And I'm sitting there thinking like, well, what if it's like a homeless person? Like this is an abandoned home. Like what if there's actually someone in here? Because you could still like hear stuff. And so I left and I went out with her and we were probably out in the car for maybe like 10, 15 minutes talking. And then we're like, we're just being scared. Let's go back in. This is so cool. We went back and it was boarded up. The window that we broke into was boarded up. And we were like, oh shit. Like, I think that was like the moment where we were like, maybe this isn't the best career path for us.
That's so scary.
And we have no idea. Like, was there someone in there? Was it all like in our heads? We're like, who knows, you know?
I'm not okay with that story.
Please tell me you're writing a book like the Veronica Witch Project. I would read.
We were just talking like all these things pop up in your memories when you're like having this conversation. You're like, wow, I totally forgot about this. We were talking about the Blair Witch Project and she was like, oh, you know, my dad did all these things. And I was like, well, I used to live in New Jersey at one point. And my friend, I guess I've always just had friends that were also really into this. I'm just realizing because these are all different friends, different states, but we all did really messed up things with Beyond the Veil.
I'm not that friend.
We went into the woods. Yeah, not yet. Wait till Halloween. We went into the woods to try to find the Blair Witch because this was before you knew that it wasn't real. And or maybe the
it could be
the legend. Yeah, is the legend? I'm sorry. Back in like the early 2000s with, you know, it was real. And yeah, we went into the woods and we were there for hours trying to find anything that could resemble a witch. I don't know where my parents were. I've said this a lot on our podcast. Like, my parents were there physically, but I don't have any memories of them ever being around or like interacting with me. Like, all of my memories, it's like me alone in a room doing like weird things. I don't know. And then like I would just go out and I didn't have a curfew. You know, you really couldn't contact your parents back then. And I was just like out in the woods and out in abandoned houses and out in all this stuff. Like, maybe that's why I'm a helicopter mom now. I have no idea. I was just really doing things that I know I'm not going to want my kids to do. All for the name of the paranormal, you know?
So, Lizzy, I hear that you have some ghost stories as well.
Yeah, so I spent about, we'll say from 13 to, very recently in the same house. So I'm a military brat. I moved all over. But when my dad retired, they had the same house. And so we call that the farmhouse. Was it a farm? No. It was 10 acres. And we did have the back 7 was wooded. So when we were talking about the Blair Witch Project, me and one of my friends went out in the woods, and I guess my dad put together like the sticks and the symbols and stuff. And so when we were walking back in on the path, we were like, oh my God. But no, the house was haunted. And we knew pretty quickly when we moved in, but she would do all sorts. There's so many stories. The worst story to me was I woke up actually in the middle of the night and she was standing at the end of my bed, and surprisingly was very calm about this. I just like literally took my covers and just like shrunk down and covered my head, which is very surprising because I feel like I would have screamed. However, I did see a shark scuba diving and I was very calmly just turned away then too. So I feel like I would actually be pretty calm in a situation like that. But I don't know. But the biggest thing, that's my biggest story. But the biggest thing was my mom was dead asleep one night and she felt like a really big tug on her hip. She was on her side, laying on her side, and she felt like a tug on her hip. And she thought it was my dad. So she was like, stop, you know? And then it does it again. And so she rolls over, my dad's dead asleep snoring. And she's like, oh my God, what just happened? So she rolls back over to go back to sleep and she gets another tug. And she like finally gets up, and the door to they had a balcony from their master bedroom was wide open. And so we just decided that was the ghost telling us that the door was open and we needed to shut it and lock it, because there were stairs up to that from the lower level. So if someone was in the yard, they could have gotten in the house. So like that was like the big thing, but she was like helpful. Yeah,
helpful.
Super helpful.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you know, those old like AC units where you have like the metal thing that you have to like pop off and on, like that thing one time like popped off and flew across the room. Like there's no way that would have happened like naturally. Like she does shit like that. And then the cold spots, that was the worst. Like the cold spots, you would just be absolutely frigid and you're like fuck, the ghost is right beside me again. Can you tell her to go away? Like, it was just a running thing.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. No, it really is. And I think we did find out, because the house wasn't very old when we bought it, but the grandmother did die in the house. So we didn't know if that was her, but also we were on Civil War battleground. So it could have been somebody from there too. So we have no idea.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's funny that you say that. Like, we went to Gettysburg one time and like my husband is also very into the paranormal, and his stories of like his childhood, they were not nice, helpful ghosts. They were like poltergeist.
That one story that you told me about at his dad's or something.
Oh, so that was the end. That was the end of my love for the paranormal in real life. But yeah, going to Gettysburg and like we were driving around at night and it was the most eerie, uncomfortable feeling that we were like, I don't want to do this anymore. Let's go back to the hotel. Like,
I feel like you can feel it though. Like when you go to a place like that, like you could.
It's so heavy.
It's heavy. It's heavy. It's very weird how like you can't explain it, but at the same time you can. It's interesting.
Nanny, are you a believer? Do you have any ghost stories?
Yeah, so I lived in the UK for a little while, and there was this movie theater in the place that I used to live, well, near it. It was haunted by this woman known as the Green Ghost. And I remember seeing at the Village there, so like this was like in the early 2000s. And like supposedly sometimes at night, some of the upstairs windows would glow green. Like that's one thing that I feel is really interesting about the UK and Europe. Like it's so old. So like all of this heavy history. Like there was a King Duncan, I think, was buried beneath one of the gas stations near my house. Like his tombstone was there, which is so sad and disrespectful.
That's really sad.
Like we went to like the Culloden battlefield, which is where they had the Battle of Bonnie Prince Charlie when the Scots fought against the English and a lot of people died. And it's like a really beautiful place, but it's super sad because, you know, I feel like knowing what happened there, it just feels so heavy.
Yeah.
Apart from that, like ghost stories, not really. In elementary school, I convinced my class that the previous caretaker of the school had died in a fire, and like I showed them these bricks, and so I had convinced like half my class that like our school was haunted and that there was this ghost woman who wanted to murder them all because she blamed the children for her deaths. And,
oh my gosh,
and that was the beginning of your author journey.
Gothic horror. Yes, there you go.
I lived in North Carolina when I was in 4th grade, and my teacher told us ghost stories at Halloween time, and it destroyed me. I did not sleep in my room for months, and my mom could not deal with me. She wouldn't even let me sleep on the floor, and she would put on country music because I grew up on 90s country music. So Alan Jackson,
love it.
It came on, I swear, every night. So every time I hear that song, I go back to 4th grade, and I'm terrified about the man on the train with his little light shining back and forth, which I'm sure is the same ghost story in every single city. But in 4th grade, I was like, nope.
And your mom just like...
She was like, I'm tired of you. Like, you cannot be in here. You need to grow up. And I'm like, I'm not
ready. Yeah. And yet my mom would also just... She would tell me if... I don't even know if it was like if I was bad or something, that like a demon would like grab my toes in my bed. So...
The differences.
It makes sense, right? It makes sense. Yeah. Gotta love mothers.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about each of your respective horror journeys. If each of you had to recommend 3 horror books or horror movies, which would you pick?
I'll start with movies. I wrote these down. I think that the movie that really messed me up for the longest time, and this was as a teenager, and then I watched it again as an adult, and I still felt the same way, was the 1980s The Changeling.
I've never seen it.
Oh my God. It has nothing to do with The Changeling that came out in like the 2000s. It's a completely different story, but it is pretty much about there was a boy who was disabled, and he haunted this place. And a man, now it's like in the 70s, and a man loses his family. And so he moves into this house. He's a musician and things start happening around the house. But I think because it was a child and then starting to kind of figure out what happened to this boy. And it was so messed up, and it's very like visually graphic. So a lot, like look up the triggers for sure. But that one
sounds really upsetting.
It was upsetting, but it was also so well done. Like it's like almost cheesy in a way now, the way that movies are. But that one, I was like, it's so good, but it is messed up. And then Amityville Horror, that was on my list. Just things like that, like truly, like,
I've never seen it.
like demonic possessions, you know. And my husband actually grew up like less than, you could walk to that house. And so like every time we would go to his hometown, I guess he didn't really grow up there, but that's where he was born. We would always see the house, and it's like a really, really pretty house. And you just think of like all the things that they say happened in that house. It's very strange. It's like, you know, it's like people are like living there and everyone's living around it. And then you watch these movies and read the book and you're like, what? Like, how could this be real? But I also really like movies like that. And then A Tale of Two Sisters. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
I have never heard of it.
Oh my gosh. It came out 2003. It is a dark psychological horror, you know, Japanese movie. I believe it might even be subtitles. That's one that
the Japanese movies are the scariest.
Oh my gosh, it is so terrifying. There are like some of those scenes, like jump scares for sure, but it is terrifying, but really good if you like horror.
I definitely, now I'm like, that sounds really scary. I have to watch it.
Yeah, it's good. It's
pass. So when I think of the movies that I actually watched that scared the shit out of me, was mostly when I was younger. I honestly, the movie that we watched last night is probably the first horror movie I've watched in a really, really long time. I'm more, like I said before, I'm more of those thriller, like the suspenseful ones. But The Ring really fucked with me. And when we talk about the ghost in the farmhouse, there was some shit going on with our phones calling each other, and then we were emailing each other, but like we weren't. And one of them was an email of the Ring video. So
oh my god.
Oh my god.
True story, it did happen.
That's so scary.
And I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty sure I was in my 20s during this time, and I was in between apartments, and I slept in the middle of my parents in their giant king bed because I was not like when all that was happening. And then we talked about the Blair Witch Project. And then the other one I would say is The Grudge.
Oh, yeah. Good ones. Good recommendations.
I've seen that, but I can't think of which one it is.
She's crawling.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. There's this book called White Smoke by Tiffany Jackson. It's a YA book. It's a YA horror novel. And in that book, the girl gets a notification. Like, she's getting notifications on her phones that she didn't set. And I'm a person who I have to set a reminder to do anything on my phone. So that would just like hit me. That really, I was like, oh my God, that's terrifying that you're getting reminders that you didn't set.
Our phones were like calling each other. Like, we were literally in the same room. It started, my mom and I actually were leaving the gym, and we're sitting in the car about to go home, and she's calling me. But she's not. Like, her phone is not physically calling me, but I'm getting a call from her. And then so that happened like all night. And then we were emailing back like each other from our email addresses. Wild. But like we weren't. It was really
It's
weird.
like those like trickster ones where it's like they try to contact you and it'll sound like a family member, but you're like you're just supposed to ignore it. Like if you hear someone go, hey, you know. Like the ghost in the spa.
Like, let's not.
Like the ghost in the spa. Yeah.
Somehow I like learned what mimics were, and I was like, oh my God, I'm never going.
It's creepy. I got chills.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't like that I live alone.
At least you have dogs that could, and a cat.
The cat's better. The dogs will sleep through shit.
Yeah.
My parents.
But I mean, I don't know what's worse. Do you want to know if there's something where like you want your
know.
cat to be going crazy? No.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll probably have to watch Pride and Prejudice again on the TV to get myself like out of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on to discussing the movie, which we all watched the movie together last night, and I cannot wait to hear your thoughts about it.
I took notes.
Okay, I love that. before we talk about the movie itself, which I don't even think we've mentioned, we're talking about The Witch. We're talking about Robert Eggers' The Witch. What does folk horror mean to you? Like, when you hear the words folk horror, what associations do you have? And what are like the trademarks of folk horror to you?
I like when I just hear folk horror, to me, it's like a horror story based on folklore. So taking some folklore that you hear every day and just making it into a horror story. But that's without me Googling what it means. That's just what my brain goes to.
Yeah, I really didn't know what it meant before. And I was like trying to figure out, like, because even some of the movies, and I think it was the movies that you guys had listed under the folk horror, I was like, oh, I don't know if I would have necessarily thought that just based on the title and, you know, me not knowing anything about the movie. But I guess like I just think like paganism and, you know, things that are kind of like eerie and like woodsy and ancestral trauma and like stuff like that. I don't know. I wasn't very clear about what it meant.
Yeah, I wasn't either.
That's one of the things I think is so interesting about folk horror is that there is so much debate on what it is and what it isn't, that there really, like, from my research, there isn't a consensus. And I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I do think in general, there tends to be like, yeah, a basis in folklore, an archaicness to it. And Nenny and I were talking, we did a little bit of an intro of just like, what is folk horror? But there are usually a lot of dichotomies between like old ways and new, or like an outsider and community. And I think we saw some dichotomies in this movie we discussed. But before we get into the movie itself, do one of you want to try to do a 60-second recap?
You're really good at things like this.
I feel like I ramble sometimes. Okay, so it's about a family.
Okay, I'm starting the timer.
Okay, it's about a family who is kind of what's the word? Thrown out of the church, and they have to go live on their own. And so they're trying to survive out by themselves without a community. And, you know, they're trying to rely on their religion, but also, you know, pushing against it. They've got a daughter who's like, you can tell she's not all on board with it. And so it's just really just about a battle of, you know, the church and Puritanism and pushing that and what that means and how to live, you know, through those beliefs. And then what happens when you don't, and then what happens, you know, when you're isolated and you don't have people and you're just relying on yourselves and you're hungry.
Oh, no. Oh, you have 5 seconds.
Oh, 5 seconds.
You're doing great.
Sorry. So, yeah. So just like,
and she's the scapegoat.
Yeah.
You did amazing. I swear, every time we reach the end and I try to let someone know of the time, I like do it in a way that is so confused. Like there's been times where I show people the timer. I do. So next time I think I just got to give people a warning.
What drove you to select today's film for us today?
I was like, did we choose it? I did. Yeah.
She chose.
You did.
She was like, Lizzy, don't worry. It's not that scary.
Which I don't think it was.
You were really excited about it.
Yeah, I don't think that it was scary.
No, I don't think it was scary, but I do think it was an excellent choice because I love history. Yeah. And I feel like that part of it, like,
and that's
totally
what I was saying.
Me.
I was like, who doesn't love like New England Puritanism, witchcraft? Like that's something that you could, you know, yeah. I don't know. Like for me, when I first saw the cover, like that was very intriguing. It's like, is that the devil? Like, what is that? And also just like, is there a reason why he spells it the way that he does? Do we know that?
Maybe. I think there's an element of language revival like we were seeing in the movie. So I don't actually know why, but my uninformed assumption would be that.
Yeah, that makes sense. It just like, it drew me into
Hi.
it. Oh my gosh. So
There's
pretty.
the culprit.
I can't see her listeners at home, but I have a cat who is being very bad on my lap.
My cat is the complete opposite of yours.
White.
It's white with blue eyes.
Oh, so cute.
She's being good right now, so we won't bother her.
So this movie is kind of credited, along with Midsommar, with being part of a folk horror revival. Maybe I just answered the question I was about to ask, but what do you feel like this movie contributes to the folk horror canon?
Yeah, so in my notes, I was thinking about how like it really brought awareness to feminine rage and religious trauma, obviously, with that entire culture at the time. And I think just like there was healing in it, I can assume based on the end. I felt like it was like kind of her like rising up from the ashes, almost like rising up from all the, do you curse on your podcast? Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
Rising up from all the bullshit that she just had to experience. And I think that just kind of highlighting the fear of those same things. Like they're scared of the feminine, they're scared of the healing and the rising and, you know, things that go against the religion. It's like highlighting that and it's almost like contradicting each other.
I just think it solidifies how much and how common religion is used to justify decisions that people make. And it's also fascinating which part of religion they want to use to justify their decisions. And I think, you know, that's why I have a hard time with, you know, going to church or any type of organized religion. I wouldn't say that I'm not spiritual. I definitely believe, you know, that there's a higher power. But when people start using religion to justify their actions, that's not what it's for. And I think that it really, it showed that throughout the whole movie, you know, and
yeah,
you know, her mother's actions towards her, even her father, you know, it's all, I'm doing this because religion says I should.
So the mother was really interesting to me. Her character and her like downfall and development or whatever within, like, I am so conflicted about her story. Like, was she just truly grieving in such a way and just like the way she was projecting her own fear of everything? And it wasn't that she like actually believed it. And then just like the whole psychosis, like that whole thing was fascinating.
And I guess I have a question for you. And is that like, okay, do we take the film at face value? Like everything we saw on screen was what happened? Or I think, Lizzy, you kind of suggested this last night. Do we think that like between the isolation and maybe that we see that their crops are failing and there were incidences of poisoning such as like, you know, it happened, Nenny, I think you were saying that's the Crucible is based in people eating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do we think that what they're experiencing is maybe like psychological, not real?
I've been thinking about this all day.
I truly believe, like, in my mind, they were poisoned and they're all going through their own downward spiral of what they think reality is.
Yeah. And in my mind, I felt like it was truly like witchcraft and the devil, but not even in a bad way, because I don't even feel like in the end, like I did not feel, do we talk about the end?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I felt like in the end, I didn't feel like the goat / demon / gatekeeper, whoever he was, I didn't feel like he had bad intentions towards her. I felt like it was almost freeing in a way for her to take her away from the cage that she was in and, you know, the judgment and the betrayal from her family and, you know, all this stuff. And he was just like, let me show you how you could give up all of that and rise to who you're meant to be, is kind of how I felt in the end. But I have been thinking about this all day because it definitely changes things. But I think that my assessment in the end is that is what actually happened. It wasn't a hallucination.
I think I just have more of a, like, I try to rational, because I'm naturally, like, I'm just a scaredy cat in general. So I try to rationalize it. So in my mind, I'm trying to rationalize it. So in my mind, that's what happened.
Nenia, what did you think?
That's a good question. I'm torn. I did wonder if on some level it was supposed to be an allegory for abuse, because the woman who kind of essayed the boy, she's never really seen again.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think of this book I read by this Black speculative fiction author. I believe their name is Akwaeke Emezi. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But they wrote this book called Pet. And it's this middle grade novel where abusers who predate on children are kind of portrayed as monsters. And so like the book is set in this world that's without monsters, but the heroine discovers that one of her young relatives is being attacked at night by like a monster who is, spoilers, like her uncle.
Mm.
And so I wondered if, the mom maybe was like abusing the son, because I noticed she like mourned him in a way that she didn't really mourn any of her other children right after his attack. And
Well,
like there was a lot of
even in the beginning, it was like,
yeah.
my lamb, my baby, and there was like, screw you. Like I want him, yeah.
And like the dad had like a really uncomfortable relationship with the daughter. And I was talking about in the chat, like, I feel like it's a movie that's almost made for people who don't understand that patriarchies create and enable abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like women and femme people watching will be like, oh yeah, this is horrible, but like, what else is there? What are you trying to tell me? Whereas other people, like men, might watch and be like, oh wow, I had no idea that things were this bad. And so it kind of felt like a movie that was just centering abuse without any sort of mention of it beyond like maybe an allegory.
I did think it was interesting, the relationship between the mother and the father, because I was always under the impression that during that time period that men were very much the head of the family. But in this movie, the mother was really dictating what the father was doing. Like she was really the one who was in control of the family. And I feel like I just kept thinking, I'm still thinking about it. Like I'm just surprised that is the way that they decided to portray the family, because history tells us that that's not the way that the family dynamic was during that time.
Yeah, that's interesting. But then again, like, I guess what power that women do have in history is often shown in the home.
Yeah.
Because they are the dominating force who like manage all the duties. And so they know how everything works. And that does give them a kind of power.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they had to like manipulate their power in a way that they were still kind of controlling the situation, but making it think that that's your idea.
Do we think that this movie is folk horror?
I would think so. Definitely.
I would think so. Yeah, for sure.
What about you, Sarah?
I think so as well. I'm thinking of, like, we talked on our intro episode about, like, the unholy trinity of those movies back in the 70s, which were, like, The Witchfinder General, Blood on Satan's Claw, and The Wicker Man. And I think Witchfinder General and I think The Blood on Satan's Claw are both set, they're historical, whereas I think The Wicker Man is more contemporary to the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And I think The Witch reminded me, I think it was in that same vein of Witchfinder General, even juxtaposing the names. I mean, the common theme of witches and of witch hunting, I think that there has to be a connection there as well.
Yeah.
Between those movies, which I haven't seen that movie and I don't really want to because I don't like watching movies with essay scenes. So.
Yeah, I really didn't like it in this movie. And Nenny, I think you have such a valid point from the abuse aspect of it. But like at the time, like last night when we were talking right after, I was like, what's the point of that scene? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like it didn't fit in with the whole rest of the story.
Which kind of draws us to our next question, which like, was the movie scary? And for me, like there are different types of scary. And then there's like disturbing, there's dread, like different types of feelings. And for me, this, like I messaged the group in the middle of the night. I'm like, it's 3 a.m. and I'm awake and I'm disturbed by this movie. But like there were quite a few scenes that really got to me. And I feel like that doesn't happen so much. But like when the baby is kidnapped and I think a lot of the times with the witch, with the baby, or not just like the scenes with the witch were very disturbing, which is probably the point, but like the way she's caressing the baby and like being affectionate towards it, and then it's implied what she does to it, and then like the essay scene, and I also found the scene where, like, even though her mother was truly awful to Thomasin, I found the scene where Thomasin is forced to kill her mother really upsetting. And just, like, the thought of how, like, it's so messy and, like, that this person you love is attacking you and that you're put in that situation, I think just, like, really affected me. So I don't know if it was, like, scary, but it was definitely unsettling in a very uncomfortable way. Like, and I kind of feel that way about Nosferatu. And I don't think I've seen other movies of this director's, but they both kind of leave me with this feeling of just, like, unsettled, but not in a way that I want to be unsettled. Like, almost in, like, a way that feels violating.
Yeah. And I think, like, a lot of it, it's like the horror happened off the screen. So, like, your imagination just kind of runs wild as to, like, what actually happened. And I felt like that was the part for me that I was, like, feeling like a little bit like of discomfort. I kept thinking about the baby scene and just being like I obviously did not want to see that and I wouldn't want to see more, but it was like, I kept thinking, like, what happened? Like, what actually happened?
Yeah.
And I actually thought the scene with the mother, when I was watching it, like, I was feeling like it was empowering. It's like, it's heartbreaking that it got to that point and what she must have felt in that moment, but it was freeing because.
Yeah, I think it's a representation of what the frustration that people have, when they're constantly not believed, they're gaslit, they're, everybody's telling them they're liars and it's not true. You get to that point where you're like, fuck you all, I'll just kill you then, right? Like, not really, but like,
Yeah, it's like the society punishes her for just growing up, and having, like, one thing that's different than what they expected. And now she's evil. She's a witch. She needs to be sent away. And you're just like, she didn't do anything.
Yeah, she didn't do anything.
The more we're talking about it, the more it's making sense to me and, like, clicking with me in an allegorical way, because for a long time I was confused. In the end, she goes and she joins the witches, but, like, throughout the movie, obviously the witch has been portrayed as real and evil, but she's doing these really disturbing things. Yeah. But I think if it's allegorical and if we assume that, like, okay, she's not actually, like, in the eyes of these religious people, she is doing these abominable sins, and that is comparable to what they think Thomasin is doing too, just by existing, by being a young woman. I think that makes a lot of sense that Thomasin in the end chooses, like, I'm going to choose my freedom. I'm going to choose to be among these women who live beyond the bounds of society. And I think, like, she's choosing freedom and she's choosing
burn it all down.
Yeah. And I feel like it's also just like, you're telling me that I'm this, so I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
Like, if you keep putting that over and over and over and over again.
We've touched on this a little bit already, but what do you think the film's creators were trying to say with the movie? And how do you think they kind of swayed the audience's emotions, like, if not fear, then, like, with disgust, to kind of accomplish this?
I think just showing us what happens when you use fear to control people and how that can spiral.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, Veronica, I thought you had a really good point about how he uses what happens off screen to really create, like, let your imagination do the work. And I think that relates to, like, Robert Eggers has incredible shadow work in terms of literally how he uses shadows and light and darkness. And I think those two are connected, like, plays with what is on screen and what's in your imagination.
Yeah, it's really what you didn't see. And I think also, the thing with horror movies too is the music is always, that's what gets you. You're like, something's coming, I know it, and you're trying to prepare. I definitely felt that, but I felt the, like, absence of the story, right? Like, the missing pieces that you had to fill in more impacting than the music. But I also think it was also the dialogue was really, really hard to understand. So I had subtitles on, so I'm busy trying to keep up with the subtitles. So the music is not affecting me. And I think that if I could have, understood them better and not have to use subtitles, I think it would have been scarier to me because the music would have been more impacting versus in this case, it wasn't, but the absence of the story and filling in the blanks was more impactful.
Yeah. It was definitely a movie where every single line was important.
Yes.
And I felt like I kept missing a line and I kept having to go back and see what they said.
Yeah, I originally did not have the subtitles on, but I kept rewinding and I was like, I'm going to have to turn these on because I have no idea what he just said.
This is such a relatable experience and I'm glad I'm not the only one.
So I always have subtitles on. I feel like I can't hear it if I'm not reading it.
Really?
Yeah.
I usually have them on too. Like if I just didn't have it, I think because I was on a different platform. I watched it on Amazon and I'm usually watching Netflix. So it's on Netflix, but it's not on Amazon.
Yeah. And fun fact, totally random, but subtitles is what has helped my 7-year-old learn to read.
Really?
Yeah. He's like,
That's awesome.
We'll put on a show and it's always there and I don't think about it. And then I noticed, this was months ago, I noticed that he was mouthing and I'm like, are you reading the subtitles? He's like, yeah, I always do. I was like, so subtitles. Good to know, especially if you homeschool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So shall we go ahead and rate the movie for scariness and overall quality? And we're rating on a scale of 1 to 10. And I'm going to invite our guests to go first. Lizzy, would you like to rate the movie 1 out of 10 for scariness and then for quality?
For scariness, I'm going to put it in the middle. We'll say it's about a 5. I didn't think it was that scary. Again, the subtitles took away from the music probably playing a big impact on that. As far as the movie, honestly, I did not like the movie, but I thought it was really well done. And, from talking about it last night as it was happening and then also, thinking on it, did it really happen? I feel like the impact of it is bigger than whether or not I liked it or not. So I would say I would give it about an 8. I think it was really good. I think it was done very well. And I think, dissecting it more, it had the impact that it was supposed to have.
Yeah. Veronica, how would you rate it?
So for scariness, I think I would probably give it about a 3. To me, it wasn't something that I would, if I'm looking for a scare, wanting to feel the feels. I thought it was more interesting than scary. And maybe it's because we were viewing it in a lens of I know we're going to talk about this. So, and who knows how I would feel. But like I said, I don't watch scary movies by myself. And I wasn't scared at all. So it was I would give it a 3. Overall, like I said last night, I felt like it was just missing so much that it was almost like we were getting the Cliff Notes version of what the story is. And I really do wish that there was more because I have so many questions. I want to know what happened. Truly, I want to know what happened.
What happened to the twins? Where did they go? Because I didn't see them. At the end, you saw the dead animals, but they were not there. So
I think
there was that one
because
scene, she was hugging.
Yeah.
And then it was no one was there.
Yeah.
So that made me think none of that really happened.
I mean, the witch was in there though. And they boarded them up. And then when she's there the next day, the boards were all broken. So I just assumed that there was probably some sort of struggle and that the witch either ate them or took them because there was blood everywhere.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
They were definitely a sacrifice.
Which is interesting because they seemed connected to, they had a connection with Black Phillip.
See, that was very interesting too, because it was very relatable to just the history of what we know as of now, what possibly happened with the witch trials and everything. Was it real or was it just these little kids playing up the stories that they were hearing? I honestly have no idea, but when they were doing it, I was just ew, that's so fake, stop being little brats. So I didn't feel they were, obviously they had talked to the goat, but they're also young and naive and maybe didn't really realize. But when they were playing it up in that moment, when they were all praying for the brother, to me, it seemed totally fake.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Overall, I think I'd give it a 7. I think that it would be a movie that I would rate higher if there was more to the story. But I don't want to sit here and think about all the what ifs for the rest of my life. I like a finale. I do appreciate the ending with like the symbolism of her rising and like us not knowing, is she really floating off into space, or is she totally like she's just lost her mind? Because for me, feeling like it actually happened, it was like such a freeing moment. And just like, that's it. Like she's, fuck it. Like, you think I'm a witch? I'm going to embrace it, you know? So I liked that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nenny, how about you? What is your verdict? What's your rating?
Oh, God. I didn't think it was very scary. I think it was more disturbing than scary. So I'd probably give it like a 4. I wasn't as big of a fan of the movie itself, although, like Lizzy, I thought the cinematography was great. And I like the visuals and the vibes, but I'd probably give it like a 5 or a 6 in terms of like how much I enjoyed it and like whether I'd recommend it to someone else. I just think that the content made it a little bit of a hard sell for me. But I definitely watch another movie by that same creator. I thought the visuals were quite stunning.
I hope you do, and then tell us all about it.
Yeah. What about you, Sarah?
This is so difficult. So I'm going to compare it with Midsommar, which I think I gave that like a 7 for scariness. This, again, like we've all said, not super scary, but disturbing. I'm going to say, because it kept me up at night, I'm going to give it like a 4. I think that's a fair rating for scariness. I think, yeah, your imagination really takes you places, and some of those, I don't even think it's the visuals, because it's not visuals, but like some of those, it stays with you. What would I give it for overall quality? I am very conflicted, and I feel the same way about Nosferatu. I'd really be interested to check out The Northman or more of Robert Eggers' films, because I just want to know, like what the experience is. But I felt like both of them were like out of quality. They are like, the cinematography is excellent. The landscape, camera work, acting is incredible. Storytelling is there. Like the light work, it has depth, it has substance, but I don't enjoy it. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, because there's something like, I really don't have a good criticism, but there's something that I'm just like, I don't know. It's not for me.
Yeah. What was your overall rating for Midsommar?
Oh my gosh. Nenya, do you remember? I can't remember what I rated it.
I feel like we both gave it like a 7, 7.5.
I can't even remember. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. I feel like it had a little bit of a more like of a cohesive storytelling, and like the ending felt more conclusive. I don't like vague endings, so this one made me kind of mad.
I loved that one. I really did.
Yeah, I think I've seen it like 3 times now, and you notice more every time. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. So do you feel like that was less disturbing than The Witch?
They're disturbing in different ways, which is so strange to me, because that was an extremely upsetting film. Like the scene where her sister like murders her parents and like kills herself. It's so horrific. And then Danny's reaction to it. And then the scene where the 2 older people end their lives. Also incredibly upsetting, just like and it's very disturbing.
Oh, and then there was this scene with the creepy boyfriend like trying to impregnate the underage like teenage girl.
Yeah. See, that one got me more than like, I think visually the like old couple, like that was very, very like, I like had to look away and I was like peeking through, like, is it done? Is it done? But that scene with the like, that was very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I looked away from that. I got up and went to like go make myself some tea.
And I was totally like rage happy, if that's even a thing, at the end of it because of that scene.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that The Witch does a really excellent job of creating fear, of like evoking this really unsettling feeling. And I think
like they just give you those like little snippets.
Little snippets.
So it's like you know the direction that it's going.
Yeah.
And then you don't know.
I think like art doesn't always have to be enjoyable or pleasant. And I really believe that art that provokes a strong reaction, whether that is like adoration or revulsion, is like the most powerful type of art. So clearly, like, I don't know. I think even if it's not my favorite movie, I think it was really well done. And I do think it's a very foundational movie when it comes to the folk horror canon. And I definitely think it's worth watching.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Agree.
I was telling my husband when I came up, I was like, so there was this one scene with a raven. And
that was wild.
That's the only thing I said. And he was like, what are you watching? Yeah.
I think, when we talk about art, whether that's books, whether that's actual artwork or movies, I think there's just, there's two different crowds. There's people that are going to watch it and appreciate for what it is and appreciate the message that the creator is trying to portray to the audience, whether they agree with it or not, right? We talk about this with reviews all the time. Just because I don't like it does not mean that it was a good book. It made me feel things that I did not want to feel, but it made me feel that.
Right.
So obviously it was well written, right? But I think with The Witch, if a person who is not digging that deep and who is not really thinking about it, like hypothetically somebody who's just reading a book for the spice, I don't think that they would like it because I don't know that you got the point of the story or why it was created from what you saw. But on the flip side, I think when you can really sit down and really think about it, I think it's very much appreciated from that type of audience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say a book, we were talking about this, Slewfoot by Brom, kind of piggybacking off of this. I highly recommend. I absolutely loved that book. And I feel like it was very similar themed, a woman in colonial times who is something happens to her husband and now this town thinks that she must be a witch. All of everything that she's getting, she must be a witch. Whether or not she is, you got to read it. But it was the same thing. She's being blamed for something constantly over and over and over that she either has or hasn't done. And then she finds power in that, in what they're condemning her for, and rises up. And it's a good one.
I kept thinking about Pretty Little Island just because of the isolation of it. And, how, when you're alone and you're isolated and you're hungry, you kind of become the worst version of yourself.
Primal.
Yeah. It's just this primal need to survive. And I just thought about that a lot because it was very similar in the sense that they're isolated, they're hungry, they turn on each other.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I'm glad that we watched it with you guys.
It was super fun. We totally should do it again.
Yes. I would love that.
Movie night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe something a little scarier.
What? You have to come over next time then.
I will. Yeah. I didn't. I was supposed to, but I didn't because storms. It was just, I didn't want to deal with that.
A dark and stormy night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's dark and tornadoes.
Yeah.
And yeah. So it was just made more sense to stay home that night. But if it's not a stormy night, I would totally come over. But then it would be scarier to leave. I'm not that we're leaving together. And yeah, you're you're not leaving.
I'm not leaving.
That was fun. Bye.
So as we wrap up, where can people find you and your work if they want more Veronica and Lizzy?
Good question.
And they do.
Of course they do.
You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcast at Spill the Spice Podcast. Also Instagram, spill dot spice dot podcast. As well as on our website, which is probably the easiest because we have every bit of information on our website at www.spill-the-spice-podcast.com.
I would also
have a Patreon.
Yeah, I was going to shout out your Patreon because I am one of the Patreon subscribers and I've won like 2 giveaways already. And so, yeah, you get, if you're a Patreon subscriber, you get entered in giveaways. And if you are interested in just like, if this is your thing, I highly recommend.
Really good spoiler conversations that we don't get to have on the main episodes, but we love having.
Mm-hmm.
Because we got questions.
I love that about your I love that about your show as well, is that you clearly come prepared to your interviews. Like, you've read the books, but not only have you read them, you've thought about them. Like, you're very intentional about your work, and it shows. And like the authors, my friends who I've talked to who've been on your show all say the same thing. And I think that's rare and really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's shocking that it's rare.
Yeah.
Because we hear that a lot. Like, wow, I'm surprised you read our books. And I'm like,
and we're like,
why would we talk to you? Like, what would we talk about?
Yeah.
It's
very true. And I do really love having, or just even being able to sit down and have a casual conversation with an author and it just be super just, hey, we're just talking. We're good friends. Because I mean, it wasn't like too long after we started and we went to a book signing event and it was so awkward to watch the interaction between the moderator and the author. It was just not comfortable. And I think, I don't know about you, but like when I saw that interaction, I was like, we're never going to be that, because it is so, I mean, I love this conversation that we're having here today, because it's just so nice to be able to, I don't know, sit back, relax, and have a real conversation. It's awesome.
I love being passionate about what you're talking about.
Definitely.
So, yeah, our final question for you is there anything else you'd like to share before we end the episode?
Did you prepare an answer for that?
Well, there was this one time where we thought someone was coming up from her basement. I'm just kidding.
Stop!
No.
Stop. There were some noises one time and we were recording and she was like, there's someone in your basement.
Oh, no.
And I was like, bitch, shut up.
I think I said it that way. It was during Halloween, right? So everything was like creepy. Yeah. No, we're really excited. We're so unbelievably honored that you even asked us to come, and we were really nervous.
Yeah, that's so funny.
We were really nervous. I was like, I don't know, like, what are we going to talk about? Like, this is so awkward. I'm not used to answering questions. And even when we were reading, I was like, ooh, this would be a really good question. This would be, and I was like, no. What am I supposed to say? I don't know what to talk about.
If it makes you feel better. I was super nervous too. I was telling Sarah, they're like famous now. And I'm like scared.
Oh gosh, no.
Yeah.
No.
I was also nervous because I was just like, I've never met them before. And also I think of you too as being so professional at what you do. And I'm like, I'm just trying to figure it out. So
and very cool,
you guys are really cool. Yeah, very down to earth, very fun. And I think it'd be fun to do this again. And if you wanted to come with your own questions, and like, that would be super fun because I think you have great questions. And I also just want to say, if you're looking for a really scary movie, have you seen Oddity?
No.
It was so scary. It's so good, so well done. But wow. That movie really scared me, and I don't know, your conversation, or your story just now made me think of it. But
stop. He's looking at me like I'm going to torture you with this movie. That's what she does at Halloween time. She like picks the cruelest books. I mean, they're really good. Don't get me wrong. I love them. But she's like, I'm going to make you read all these scary books.
It was just the first Halloween that we spent together. And I like come alive. There's something so like nostalgic about just fall and, Halloween and everything. And she's like, I don't really celebrate Halloween. And I was like, let's go above and beyond and then some, because it was like the first time.
I will say it was
she loved it.
Yeah. And it was, I would say it's the first Halloween that I've like really enjoyed in years.
That's amazing.
Like we had a really good time and our neighborhood comes alive. So it was just like, It was a really, really good time.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so
I don't
sweet.
torture her. She loves it. So let's not.
Well, I pretend like I don't, but secretly I like it.
She's like, do it again, please. Yes.
I think the theme of our next season is going to be Gothic. So if there are any Gothic movies that you're into, that would be super fun.
Yes. But I did want to say I am so I love your podcast also. Aww. And it really did revive something for me. I obviously love reading books, and I did not want it to get to a point where it felt like a job. And I felt like listening to your podcast and being like, this movie sounds good. This movie sounds good. And it made me intentionally be like, I'm not going to read tonight. I'm going to watch a movie. And because it's new again and it's fun. I haven't really watched scary movies or really any movies. I have 2 kids. I am definitely a mom that is very heavily involved. I don't leave them with anyone. We don't do date nights. We don't do stuff like that. It's taken a lot with my anxiety and everything to even get to the point where I am right now. So this has kind of revived something in me that I've lost for a really long time. So thank you.
I'm so glad to hear that. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I'm just thankful to form a friendship, because I say this all the time. I feel like it's very difficult to find friends as adult women who support each other and genuinely support each other. And I'm just so thankful to be connected to both of you. I think that's just great.
I totally agree. I'm like, why do my best friends all live hours away across the country?
I know.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up and just say thank you to everyone for listening to Horror/Stories. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you gave us a review or shared this episode with a friend. And if you are also interested in being a guest on the show, you can find a link to fill out a guest interest form in our Instagram bio, which is our Instagram is @horror/stories_pod.
And don't forget to subscribe to our show and to check out the lovely ladies at Spill the Spice podcast, because they're amazing. And thank you so much for listening, and we love you all. Bye.